fill your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you.
Hi, welcome to Healing Outside the Box. This is our 146th show, and my name is Rosemary Lachance, and I'm an energy healer and a spiritual therapist and teacher. And David?
Hi there.
Your name? No, tell me your name.
I have to tell you. My name is David Beatty. I'm a biontology therapist. I work out of the Wellness Center in Weston, Connecticut by the name of Life Balance Center.
Okay. And we are co-hosts for this thought-provoking series and are dedicated to providing you with food for thought information and answers to all modalities of alternative healing, spiritual development, animal welfare, environmental concerns, and so much more in the form of guest speakers who are experts in their fields. To find out what shows are playing in your area and when they are playing, please contact the public service channel in your town. To find out their website, giving you their address and phone number, please check my website, where you will find a list of all the towns that air this show under Healing Outside the Box, and we'll give you that at the end of the show. Please like the show on Facebook under Healing Outside the Box, where you can learn about and see pictures of our past guests and ask questions or leave a comment. We hope you enjoy the show. And our guest tonight is Tim Trahan.
Tim Trahan, a licensed holistic acupuncturist. Tim is a graduate of Quinnipiac University right down the road. He has worked with professional athletes from all major sports, including the Boston Bruins. I happen to be a Rangers fan, so maybe we can get him over there. The season starts soon, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. He also works with the Women's World Cup soccer team and the Women's Beach Volleyball team. That must be fun. Okay. Also, in 2000, Tim graduated summa cum laude and received his master's degree from Emperor's College in Traditional Chinese Medicine Therapies. He encompasses both Eastern and Western therapies in his treatments, and that's one of the major themes of tonight's session. Tim's practice includes acupuncture, physical therapy, strength and conditioning, and sports medicine. Tim also lectures on orthopedic conditions.
Okay. Okay, for questions, the first thing we ask you, Tim, is, and we ask every guest, is what made you get into this line of work?
You know, I think from an early age, I've always been involved with helping people, healing people. I remember playing football and as a teenager, and one of my friends went down, and I didn't know anything. I was just in high school, but I thought he dislocated his shoulder because I was a shoulder dislocator. So I tried to set his shoulder, but it was a broken clavicle.
Oh.
So I had a rough start to it.
Yeah.
But you know, when you get hurt and you go through things, you know, we're all wounded healers, I think. So yeah. I think that was probably my impetus to get into it. As far as the Chinese medicine, working with pro athletes, I realized that in order to be completely balanced is going to allow you to be at your highest level of performance, whether that's physical performance or mental performance or spiritual performance, whatever that is in your life journey. So I just looked into medicines that treat on all those levels, and acupuncture and Chinese medicines did that.
Oh, okay. So you studied and became one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So how do you integrate mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical balance in your treatment?
Well, it's all about, you know, sometimes structural balance will lead to emotional balance. Sometimes spiritual balance will lead to physical balance. There's a saying that if you're not physically okay, if you're in pain, the spirit doesn't have a good place to rest. So it's funny how it all comes around again. Like I can treat somebody for, let's say, a frozen shoulder, and you might be working on at the same time a relationship issue they might have. So when you clear one thing up, the energy just flows better.
Right.
It's almost like turning a faucet and things just click. So you know, you look at all those things, and my intake is very, very large. It's because you look at all the organ systems. People probably aren't aware, but Chinese medicine is based on the organ systems. So you have your lung channel, for example, which goes to your lung. So the foundation of everything is the organs. So it's almost like an internal medicine doctor or a family practice doctor, and you treat everything from insomnia to MS to relationship, depression, addictions, Of course, being a physical therapist and being a sports ortho guy, I get a lot of spine, a lot of chronic pain.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, it's easy to treat pain, I should say, you know, but what you want to always do is find the person's structural imbalance, their pattern imbalance, how things relate to one another, which I think in Western medicine sometimes they lose sight of that a little bit. You know, they can get very detail oriented with like a special test like an MRI or something, but they might miss some associations with how things compare one to another. Physical therapy does this. You know, when you look at someone throw a baseball, for example, you might have to look at their kick strength. You might have to look at their gastroc or their adductors relating to their shoulder. So we already have this kind of philosophy of we have to look at this whole picture physically. You know, and then when you get to the higher ranks of the sport, in the professional sport, you start to notice guys being mentally prepared is the biggest challenge. You know, how do they play in and out every day? Like I used to play baseball, but there's no way I can watch a baseball game. And there's also no way I could be that focused to play however many games it is, 168 games day in and day out.
Oh, wow.
Yep, so consistency of effort is a big thing for them. So mentally getting them relaxed or fired up, or guys started coming to me for that. So again, that was the impetus for me to kind of explore a little bit more into that.
That's good.
My turn?
Yep.
What is the difference, if there is one, between a holistic acupuncturist and an acupuncturist? And the term balance you've used a few times. What does that mean? Is it energy flows, light flows? What is actually being balanced?
Good question. On the first note, holistic acupuncture, you guys gave that title, but I took it. Holistic to me, and it was funny, I was looking at that word and I'm like, should I take issue with that word? And I was thinking absolutely not, because it's the whole.
It's the whole, right?
Yep, it's the whole. It's the whole person, it's the whole being, it's the whole relationship with your parents, your siblings, the whole relationship with what you're doing in life, what your destiny is. So there's genetic components to that, there's spiritual components to that. So, and then of course holistic, also the word holy comes into mind. So it is a spiritual journey, and I think these days especially people are starting to wake up to the fact that, you know, spirit is something that you can use to heal. Spirit is certainly something that can get you through things. You know, like they say, when you're in hell, you just keep going. Yep, and if you have that faith, whatever it might be, certainly gets you there. And the other question?
Was about balance. What does balance mean? Yes.
Balance is, everything needs to be in balance, and this is where you take into account everything. So when you first see someone, a good physician diagnoses an observation alone. So you're looking at them, you might be looking at facial structure. You'll ask provoking questions. How do you sleep is a big question you ask about a big thing in balance, because that's what balances out these two types of chi that has to do with how you nurture yourself and how you defend against things. So your autoimmune diseases that we talked about before a little bit. And everyone has their strong suit. You know, it might be someone who, like a Wall Street guy, might be a little aggressive. Their liver element might be a little bit out of balance. So they might be a shouting voice. They might have really long fingers you might look at. They might be really aggressive in the way they walk. And you know, that may be out of balance if they start yelling a little too much. So you look at all these kind of things, and you know, like I said, the intake really clues you into that.
Right.
Another thing that clues you into that too is pulse and tongue. Pulse is like this little microcosm we have that you can read the pulses, and they go back to the organs. So on the left side you have your heart, then your liver, and then your kidney, and on the right side you have your lung and your spleen and your kidney. And then you have these three levels of energy, blood, and organ level, which all speak to an imbalance. And there's maybe 100 different qualities of the pulse. And people that work with energy know that something that people can develop and things that we have developed is our tactile sense and how we feel things. The tongue also is a little microcosm, as is the ear and the eye and the stomach and the foot with reflexology. So all these things can point to things, but we take things to a umpteenth degree, where we'll scan the ear and we might see a red spot on, you know, in the spine area, and we'll be like, what's going on with your T7? Let me go look at T7. And we might mobilize that and be like, oh yeah, that's really stiff, or that's unstable. So those are some ways you look for balance. Basically, how someone's living, you know, if they're happy. If they catch colds frequently, that's a lung one. People that are grieving, if their grieving is appropriate. All things like that, you kind of look for that kind of balance.
So what you're speaking of is the integration of Eastern and Western medicine, because Western medicine seems to have evolved allopathically into taking care of various parts.
Yes.
For instance, older women, 70 and 80, they used to pull the gallbladder out at the first sign of infection or whatever. And in your work, 70% of the lighter balance, 70% of the activity does go through or is involved with the gallbladder meridian. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you know, in Western medicine is very good at managing a disease. If you have a broken bone and that needs set, you want that managed. You want to go to the ER. You want to
Right.
go. You want to have that
Oh,
set.
that's
yeah,
they're
yeah.
great. That's wonderful.
But as far as prevention,
Right.
things that you look for imbalance, like the tongue and the pulse. Let's say your father had a heart attack at 45, and your grandfather had a heart attack at 42, and your great-grandfather had a heart attack. Guess what? You better be really looking at your heart energies. You know, particularly on a mental, emotional level. Where is joy? Where are you with relationships? How is your sleep again? You know, sleep has been associated with the heart for thousands of years, 2,500 years. The heart needs to fill with blood so it can get calm so that you can get to sleep. So people that stay real active at night, you know, whether they work out late or they eat late, the blood's going to the muscles, the digestive system, the heart never gets that pooling of blood so it can calm down. So those are, and there's, you know.
So that's not an old wives' tale, you need 7 hours sleep.
Well, everybody's different on that fact. You know, everyone has their different quota of, it's very individual. You know, so I don't know, as long as someone's healthy and they're restoring themselves, you know, all of your fibromyalgias and chronic fatigue syndromes and chronic pain syndrome, myofascial, all these things have one thing in common. Sleep is off.
Sleep is off.
Sleep is off.
Yeah.
And all
Sleep
my old
is off.
Wall Street friends try to get by on 5 hours. It's going to catch up with
Yeah,
them, right?
it's going to catch up to you.
Right.
And what it catches up to is your kidney energy.
Yeah.
Your kidneys are involved in your aging process. They house the yin and yang. Yin and yang is probably one of the best things that I use to integrate into my physical therapy practice, and it's one of the foundations of how I practice. And it's not just this one theory of opposites. There's 4 principles to it, which, you know, is way in detail, but the translation literally of yin and yang is the sunrise and the sunset. So it's this constant movement from one state to another. So in my Western world, what I look at is, where is someone in their injury process? Is it chronic? Is it more yin? You know, so I do more yang things. Or is it acute? More yang, like they just damaged it, they're bent over, stuck, they're in acute pain. So then you have to do very yin things. You're not taking that person and putting them through an exercise program. You might be just icing them and resting them and doing some kind of bracing on them to kind of knock it down. So there's that continuum of healing that I use yin and yang principles with. So that's another really integral part of how I kind of melded my practice.
Right. And that's holistic doctors treat the whole person. The spirit, the soul, the body, the emotions, everything. Whereas unfortunately, you know, regular doctors just treat the symptoms.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really get you well. But yet you're right about healing, breaking bones and things like that. They're excellent for that. And replacements of hips and parts and stuff,
a lot of that.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
wonderful on that. It's really, really great.
I had the opportunity to work with some really, like, right day one, just had a total hip in their home, and integrate my physical therapy with the acupuncture with that. And it was phenomenal, the
I'll
results I
bet.
had.
I'll bet.
You run into some things, and this is one of the reasons I'm here, is to educate. You know, education is key to everything. So I was treating someone who still had an open wound, and I was doing acupuncture on them to clear swelling, and it actually is proven to help wound healing with burn victims and everything. It brings in red blood cells. And the physicians was upset that I was doing needling on an open wound. So I had to go and show them the research showing that, hey, you know, this actually improves your success rate, because, you know, you don't want an infection to happen on your patient, especially with a total joint, because that gets in the joint and wreaks havoc. So
I've said this on the show many times, and I'll say it many more times. It's always been my dream that allopathic physicians and naturopathic physicians and healers, energy healers, work together
yes,
to
amen
heal
that.
the person.
Yeah.
I hope that comes about someday. I really do.
Yeah, it's
That we'll
getting
all
there.
shake hands and work together.
It's getting there. It's
Yeah.
getting there. You know, and it starts with educating.
Right.
It really does, and that sometimes that takes grace and patience. You know, I'll still get people that don't understand physical therapy. So I give grace to people that have no idea that acupuncture looks at all these organ systems. And I'll have patients cancel on me because they have a cold, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're phenomenal at colds. You know, we can tailor a formula to you based on your symptoms that's has antibacterial and antiviral herbs in it, clears the sinuses, soothes the throat, descends the qi for coughing. After antibiotics, when the belly's upset, restores the belly cilia. So, but a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
they don't.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's a pill for this and a pill for that and a pill for this. People really need to get educated, and that's what we're trying to do with this show. Show people they have alternatives.
Yeah,
You know?
and I applaud you for that. That's great. 100 and how many shows? 140?
146. You're my 146.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Keep
How
on
am I
going.
stacking up so far? I want to be top 10.
Oh, you're doing
10
good.
years.
We'll see
So
what
now you're
happens on
number one.
Facebook. Yeah. When I put you on Facebook, we'll see what goes on.
Okay.
So, would you say that was pattern diagnosis? Did you say
Pattern
that? Yeah.
diagnosis.
That's
yes.
what that was,
Everything
right?
is a pattern,
Right.
like an artist, and we think our medicine is so superior, but it's really a partial truth model, because if you accept the fact that you learn stuff new each day, and that will change the way you did things before, you always have to operate from what's called a partial truth model, and within that model there has to be tinkering. And medicine truly is an art, not a science. If anyone's gone through anything and thought they could get a quick answer to something, they know it's not true. And that's not against the physicians, it's not against any kind of Western thought, but you have to tinker a little bit. Especially with some of these things that we just call syndromes. Yeah. In China, we were talking about Cuba before, how they have integrated allopathic medicine into it. They're allowed to tinker. They're allowed to take someone and look at them and say, this person can't get out of bed because they have a bleeding ulcer. This is a true example now that I was interning in Marina Del Rey, California at an addiction center, which I love, by the way, because it was so good at the acute stuff, but also you had to really uncover what's going on with that person.
Right.
Whether there was some abuse most of the time, or the worst ones were just smart and just bored. Those were the hardest ones to crack. But we would do rounds with the physicians, and there was a woman there who had a bleeding ulcer, and she was in the hospital now. Past day 1 or 2 in the hospital, they don't want you in there anymore. You're costing a lot of money.
Oh.
So we looked at her tongue and pulse, like I talked about. She had a pale tongue, so blood deficiency, right? Not a big jump, right? Because bleeding ulcer, she's bleeding.
Yeah.
Her liver pulse was very weak and empty, so that's also a liver blood deficiency. That's one of the patterns we have. So what we did was we did some points for liver blood deficiency, and we did some herbs to tonify liver blood. One of the formulas for that is called Su Wu Tong, which is 4-substance formula. It's been around again forever. It has some, it's just 4 herbs. And the woman was able to get out of the hospital. And you look at this and you're like, why isn't it here? And again, you have to remind yourself, grace, patience, and a lot of things like this occur, like childhood fevers, for example. There's an herb that takes down a childhood fever that can literally boil the brain. And they have this thing, and it's called chai hu. And as a last resort, there's no side effects. So why not tinker and try,
People don't know enough about herbs.
Yeah.
And then some people who do like herbs, they do it on their own, and they really should consult
Yeah.
the natural doctors
Yeah.
to tell them how to take and how to do it.
Yeah.
Because vitamins is one thing, but herbs, there's a few herbs you can do yourself, but the rest, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And the
You need to
Chinese
have-
pharmacopoeia too is vast. Like there's a formula for this formula here, for example. Let me just hold it up.
Yeah.
This formula here is for a cold, and it has probably 15 different herbs in it because it's all clearing phlegm. But then they say, well, what about balance again? Do we want to clear too much phlegm? We better add a moistener in there too.
Yeah.
Oh, they have too many herbs that go up. You got to have an herb that goes down. Like one of the best formulas for anti-aging, right? What do we do for...
Are you listening out there? Anti-aging. Are you listening?
What do we do for anti-aging, right? You get past a certain year, they usually want you to take a baby aspirin.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
does that-
right.
What does that do? It thins the blood,
Right.
right? So the blood is easier to travel from the head to the toe.
Yeah.
So the Chinese formula is actually a formula for chest pain, but it has herbs in it that goes from the head to the toe. So moving blood. Running water doesn't get stale. I'm a very moving guy. I like to do manual work. I'm probably known more for my manual skills. And the acupuncture as well, moving energy, exercise, moving energy. So all it is bringing in movement, bringing in the energy. The energy has an intelligence to know what to do to fix it. So, some of the masters, they'll just do a group of 8 points a lot of times. They're called the 4 doors. They're in your belly. So they relate to the large intestine and the stomach, and a point called Qi Hai or Sea of Qi. So the large intestine and the stomach are storehouses for energy. Lots of blood and energy in those things. That's why you never want to have cancer in those things, right? Yeah. So they get the energy up, and then they use 4 gates in the big toe and here. This is probably the one that people know most, hagu. But those are the energy that moves the most. See, the idea is, all right, I got the energy up, I got it moving, it knows what to do now, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they'll walk away, and they'll just use some of these points. So the big joke is, when you first come out of school, you're doing like 30, 40, 50 points on somebody, right? And you look at these masters, and they're like, ding, 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 ding. All right, rest for 20 minutes, you know. I'll come and stimulate it in a little bit. And I don't know if that's intention, that they just have this intention. You know, you develop these relationships with certain points. You know, I have certain ones that I like, and just like any practice, as you evolve, you change and you grow, and you have to be able to tinker again. You know, and there's a point, just to illustrate that example of the energy knowing what to do. There's a point that is the number 1 point, stomach 36. It's the master point for the stomach. So now we're coming to realize that, hey, you know what? Everyone's into, what kind of yogurt does everyone want now? All the probiotics and stuff, right?
Right.
Our immune system is where? Our guts.
Right.
Yeah, you are what you eat. So all these points, particularly this one, is the master point for the stomach. So in the stomach, almost cures everything. So this point here, stomach 36, they put the point in and they measured acid production in the stomach. They identified people that had a high level of acid production and a low level of acid production. Without doing anything different to the needle, the stomach knew what to do. It balanced.
Wow.
Yeah.
This may be a good time. You've mentioned needles a few times, needling and needles. What are the basic or primary misconceptions about your work in acupuncture in general?
You know, probably the one thing that we've hit on already is that there's a big herbal component to it. You know, there's a large, half of my schooling was probably herbal medicine. I went to school in California, and it was another 4 years after my physical therapy degree from Quinnipiac, and it was 900 more intern hours. So the schooling is a big one. And the other thing that probably is a misconception is sometimes the needles do hurt. Sometimes you have to get something called da chi, which is an ache. Most of the time, I'll put needles in and people will fall asleep. They're painless.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're working with heavy pain like I do, sometimes you do have to elicit a da chi sensation, or you might get an energy propagation down the hand, or you might get one down the leg in that stomach 36 point. But that's probably the biggest one.
When I had it, well, most of the time it never hurt. Once in a while, when needle was in, if I moved my arm, I'll feel a little pain.
Yeah, you know, and I forget to tell people, so you don't want to move too much.
I know.
Because a lot of times, particularly, you probably had it in a point here. If you just lift your finger up and you engage that muscle, it grabs it. Just like EMG. Have you ever had EMG testing?
No.
For like a nerve thing down the neck or something, they actually stick a blunt needle in and they have you contract, and they measure the nerve conduction velocity of it and the
I
interference
heard that's painful,
pattern.
right?
It's very painful. Yeah.
So but putting the needles in, never even felt them. You know.
Yeah.
I didn't know you then. See? Now I know you.
Yeah. And it's technique too. And you know, we're in a society where people want to feel good. They don't want to. The Chinese have a saying for us is we don't like our bitters.
Yeah.
Bitter is a taste that we just don't like.
Bitter and sour.
And bitter is a taste that actually clears phlegm for colds and obesity. And phlegm is one of these 6 evils, they call it, you know, that actually can invade the body and get stuck. So when you have a cold and you get stuck there, if it sticks around too long, it turns into heat and gets an infection. Or there's phlegm that kind of misses the mind a little bit and can cause depression, or it can cause cloudy thoughts. Or
Really?
Yeah. But that's all a phlegm component, almost like a hangover feeling. Yep, makes you feel heavy in your joints and stuff like that. And usually you can get more achy, as you know, for your arthritises when this weather, like today, with the rain and the cold and the wind. All those things are arthritis in Chinese medicine.
What would make more phlegm in your body?
Your belly not doing a good job of turning food over.
The belly.
So again, it goes back to what you are what you eat.
Right.
Yeah. Our Chinese nutrition guy, I got pretty good at understanding, you know, Chinese English, I should say. But this one professor I had, I'm trying to remember his name. I don't remember his name, but he started class, first day of class, I think we were juniors at that point. He said, "You dig your tomb or your tea?" And we were like, "What?" We kept the whole class. He said it, repeated it maybe like 4 or 5 times. And finally, he wrote on the board, you dig your tomb with your teeth. So what you eat, and everything is just loaded with preservatives and dyes, and I have 3 boys, and it's a constant struggle. When they're eating something that's like fluorescent blue, I'm like,
that's not from nature.
Yeah, it's not. There's nothing that color in nature that you should be eating.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you're
and
right.
you keep mentioning the gut. With the expansion of antibiotics in our culture, doesn't that go right to the gut and upset the balance there?
Yeah, and I treat a lot of people that are, I'm a dual practitioner, and someone needs, when they're going through Lyme or something, it's great to take that big dosage of antibiotics, and someone's about to get pneumonia and get into bronchitis, and you got to clear it out, because again, the longer it sits around, it's going to stick there. But what happens is, it's so good at killing all that stuff, but it doesn't clear it. So it stays stuck there. So the Chinese have a phrase of, you have to clear the dead soldiers. So whenever you finish a course of antibiotics, you have to still do something that clears phlegm. Yep, I'm a big clear phlegm guy, and this formula, its foundation is clearing phlegm.
What about acidophilus?
It's the same thing. That's more harmonizing. It's bringing the healthy microbes back. Same reason why you want to get in the garden and get dirty.
Why?
It brings up all those natural microbes and
exercise.
stuff. No, get actually dirty in your hands.
Dirt in your hands?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because that's where all the microbes are and stuff. One of the scariest places to be these days is the hospital.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see your infections right there, and it's like, whoa, they're supposed to be clean as anything. What's happening?
I know.
It's funny.
really
They're almost
bad.
not dirty enough.
Oh,
Yeah.
so in the dirt itself, it penetrates through the skin?
Yeah. One of the best
I'm
things
gonna
to
go play
restore
in
your
the
gut
dirt
is
next time.
getting in the dirt. Yeah.
Oh,
And I
that's
love
cool.
to garden.
Yeah, me too.
Gardening's great. And it's nurturing. People that are in this field are typically nurturers.
Yeah.
So we have to watch that balance, and that goes to the spleen, which is the big thing in Chinese medicine. Is people treat from the spleen because it transforms and transports. So it transforms food into energy. So that's the big thing there. So most people always treat from a spleen point of view.
Huh. From a spleen point of view.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Survival in school, because the spleen, just to give you a correlation, the spleen's in charge of being centered, being pensive, being nurtured, a mother. It's a Mother Earth element. It's late fall, so the harvest is in. In the spleen, when you have imbalances in the spleen, you may not feel cared for. We talked about how I look for imbalances. So one of my questions is, do you feel cared for? So you get into these open-ended questions, and you'll be surprised at some of the stuff you get.
Where's
But,
the spleen?
Spleen is upper left quadrant.
Over here.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the point for the spleen, guess where it is?
In your toe.
Well,
That's the end point.
Rosemary, that's actually very good, because
Really?
it starts
point.
there. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. But there is a point on your spleen where your spleen is. It's called a moo point or alarm point. So you can poke around like liver points. You can see if you ever get like a weird pain, it means something. Again,
Really?
we're always observing. Palpation is one of the things that we do a lot of. And again, as a physical therapist, I'm already one up on that. You're at a good practitioner when they just look at you and they start touching you, like, ow, I didn't know that hurt. Ow, I didn't know that hurt. Oh, I didn't know that hurt.
Yeah,
You're getting all
right.
those points.
Right.
And my practice is very intuitive too, but intuition is based on knowledge. So when you have a knowledge of all these points, again, all their functions, which are vast, and your favorites, and the conditions you've been treating, you're able to kind of go in almost in a zone almost, and just start needling. And the spleen is one of the ones that you always do. So people that overthink and overworry always have a spleen imbalance, and you have to harmonize the spleen organ. And the true cures are always in lifestyle. So what spleen people, the ones that have racing thoughts and think too much and wake up and have the racing thoughts, you know what the best thing for them is? What would be the opposite balance of that? Would be meditation.
Meditation.
Right.
Guess what they hate to do?
Meditate.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't keep my mind still.
Yeah.
I seem to be going
Yeah.
through it. Well,
It's a practice. It's a
right.
practice.
And they do start going through. You just kind of let them float through.
Yeah.
You can
It's
take-
a
right, you
spiritual
gotta
journey. It's
stay
work.
with it. Right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is work.
And that's the thing, is that the true cure, all this stuff, the other misconception probably is that it's a miracle. I've had people that have walked in severe pain and walked out like, wow.
Yeah.
I almost wish they didn't say anything, because the expectation of that, when someone comes in like, oh, my friend had this, or you're like, no, they're going to be hard to treat then. You know,
They're
and
expecting
it's
a
funny.
miracle. Yeah.
There's actually research on that people that have high expectations actually do worse. It's almost like block something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the more open we can be to the experience, I think, is the better results you have. So I try to downplay it. I always say, I have a phrase, you know, when you've been doing this a long time, you have your phrases you always use. But I always give an example of when I was trying to treat someone's migraines, I helped their hearing. Because you never know. It's like that John of God guy. I don't know if you've seen him.
Yeah, sure.
You don't know how the healing takes place. It might take place in another plane. It might take place somewhere they don't know, and it might not be immediate. But I know from this medicine that the true cure is always, and if you can get someone to change, to balance their lifestyle a little more. So that type A guy, maybe for the liver particularly, because it's in charge of the smooth flow of blood to the muscles, stretching and yoga is very good for them. So the idea is always to get them to a place where they can be responsible for their own care and then go and do those things to stay balanced.
How about, there's two things I wanted to ask you about. One was Lyme disease, and the other one was like cancer. If someone has cancer, have they ever had treated someone that had?
I have, yeah.
Can you do anything with that?
Yeah, you know, and I remember the show you had with the veterinarian that was also did acupuncture
Well, you saw
as
that
well.
show?
Yeah,
Dr.
It was
Asselin.
sweet. Yeah, you
He's
got
great. He's in
emotional. He was
Northford.
touching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard he was great.
He was.
So you asked him about end of life things. If he wasn't, I don't know if he answered the question, or you asked him if there was something you could do in end of life stuff, and there certainly is. You know, the Chinese call it polishing the mirror. So it's a lung thing, and the lungs have to do with breathing and being inspired. So you're breathing in the air, and within the air is God or spirit. So the more you can see that in yourself, the easier the transition.
They're passing over.
Passing over.
Well, what about, can you do anything for healing is what I meant.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up the National Institutes of Cancer and acupuncture, you'll be floored at all of the positive research out there. But it's one of those really hotbed things that we have to be very careful of. You're starting to see them integrated into things, and I would like to see it more on a level of like a house MD. Like, let's go at this hard. Let's just not do palliative, supportive, and like calm them down, but let's get at this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and particularly one of the biggest things with people going through cancer is chemotherapy.
Ugh.
So the support comes in with the chemotherapy. There's actually a formula they use that treats damp heat. We talked about dampness, so damp heat in the intestines is like diarrhea and explosive diarrhea and all that stuff. All the stuff that people have to back off their dosages.
Right.
And ultimately, the game is get as much in you to possibly get you to a place where you're killing all the bad stuff, but there's still a little bit left of you to come back again. So the ability to absorb that side effect is really important. And there's a formula they're doing research with at Yale right now. But the problem is, because it's plant-based now, if you grow a plant in 2010 in this soil, and then you try to grow it again in 2011 in this soil with this change in climate, you can't standardize it enough for them. And again, it's almost like that first step is the big difference. You see, the plant, which God created, is great in its whole. What we try to do is find that, again, we break it down into its part, and like, this is the active component. This is what it does. Now we can use it and make a pharmaceutical out of it.
That's how it all started, medicine.
That's how it all started. And that gets very, very...
So they could make money with it. Yeah. Well, that's how it
you're a
started.
conspiracy theory. You're a self-professed conspiracy theory.
Well, that's how it is. I mean, that's how it started.
Yeah.
It was way back when it was all with plants until somebody said, "Oh, I wonder if I can make money with this."
It's funny, the origin of things are sometimes rooted in that, and sometimes those cause the most imbalance in things. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, it's always about balance and prevention, which is hallmarks of the medicine, which again is another misconception. People want to come to me after they've exhausted everything. And what I'm starting to see people coming to me for, especially in California, they say, you know what, I just feel a little off today.
Right. Instead
Or
of
I
the
just,
end of the line,
or you know what, I like how this feels. Let me just keep going this. You know, let me just stay balanced. I don't quite know how to identify it. I use a wellness scale right now where I'm trying to develop that is just basically describing what wellness is, where you're at now and where you're going, and almost being aware of that. Everything starts with awareness. Will make them better people and more well.
Well, I have a stat here to follow that up. Acupuncture was studied in 6 clinics in 5 different states. Patients reported that most of the time they feel better 76% of the time, and miss fewer work days 71% of the time. So in this culture of get me through the day with a pain pill or whatever, acupuncture may be a long-term inexpensive solution.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing now. And finally, you know, it's fine. Money drives a lot of things in life. And what you're seeing now with the vets coming home is really kind of bringing this thing to the forefront. There's a bill that we talked about that is, what is it exactly? Do you have
You
that?
want me,
Yeah.
you want me to list it?
Yeah.
HR 4887
Yep.
is the bill.
Yep, and that's expanding care to veterans. There's a lot of programs right now about treating veterans with post-traumatic stress. You know, they don't like the word disorder anymore. They're changing the vernacular of it, but it's amazing how many vets are on pain meds or going through terrible times. You know, we know the stats on suicide and stuff.
Yes.
And when you can link this medicine to that, and you link all these multifactorial things to help them. You know, I took a course on it, and a guy talked about one of the things that the guys like the most, dealing with this stress, because the reality was not right. You know, what they went through was just not right. You have to reprogram society. Like, they'd have the hardest time in crowds, and one of the things, they'd go to Walmart, which that would stress me out, you know?
Yeah.
But when you can link the emotional component to what they're going through, whether it's hypervigilance or dissociation or survivor's guilt or just, you know, aggressivity, and link that to an organ system and then go at it from a Chinese medical point of view, guess what? You're saving a lot of money. You're saving a lot of time and money on those guys. And one of the coolest things was one of the best teachers of us on how to deal with loss and trauma are our kids. They're resilient like anything. And one of the things kids do is they play through it. So one of the things the vets love to do is they'd get them in something and they would roughhouse the SH out of each other.
Yeah,
They
right.
love releasing that male
Right.
aggressive energy.
Yeah.
Almost like you picture, you know, you're a big animal lover, you picture a wolf pack.
Yeah.
How they just like go at it with each other, and
Yeah.
it's a way to relieve stress.
Right.
Yep. And one thing that's
They
really
play and
cool,
wrestle.
yeah, when you needle, they have these twitches, and it's like an electric release of this kind of stress that's really neat. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, on a show we had about vaccinating children, and we had this naturopathic doctor that comes on often, and he's really wonderful. And he made a remark that always stuck to my mind. He talked about some of these terrible diseases that are around, like the Ebola now that everyone's talking about, okay? Some people survived and some didn't. And he made the remark is that they didn't stop to see why they survived. They just knew they did, but they didn't know why. But he said it's because their immune system was built up. It was at peak performance, and that's why they survived. Whereas the other people whose immune system was really bad, there's the ones that passed on. What do you think about that?
I think it's fantastic. I had a patient early today who was flying to London, and her treatment today, she's been a patient of mine forever. You know, scoliosis, back, neck, but the treatment today was to bolster her immune system.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, and the immune system is everything. And you know, we talk
Right.
about sleep a little bit. So Qi is another term that we use a lot. Qi, energy.
Yeah,
You know,
ener-
what
it's what-
exactly does that mean?
Yeah,
you know?
energy, right?
Again, yeah. So you look at the symbol of it, and the symbol of it is actually a pot of rice with a fire under it. So it's the becoming of rice. So it's this energy. It's a kind of a hard grasp to, you know, again, I'm always bridging this gap between Western and Eastern. Energy is a tough concept to grasp sometimes because it's a becoming, it's a manifestation. So one of the type of qis is called Yin Qi, which is your nutritive qi. And another type of qi is called your Wei Qi, or defensive qi. So those two are in balance. The best example of that is when someone falls asleep in the woods and it's freezing out. They're going to pass away. Because what happened was their defensive energy went in to nurture their body. They have no more protection. That's why you never sleep. You've seen that. I love those survival shows, you know, about don't fall asleep, you know, don't fall asleep. So when you sleep, that whole system gets rebalanced again. So that's exactly, so when that system gets off, when the Wei Qi comes in and starts attacking your own nutritive Qi, that's your autoimmune disorder. And that can be anything from arthritis to multiple sclerosis to, you know, I have one called vitiligo, which is white spots. My own cells kill the melanin producing things. So all those things have to be in balance. And one of the best ways to balance that is your sleep. Yep. Yep. And
Good
of course,
sleep, getting a good sleep,
yep.
right?
And the Fuji, your spleen.
Yeah.
What's your energy like? So
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll ask people like, well, how's your energy today? And they know what I'm talking about. I'm fatigued, and you can see that in the pulse too. So what controls that, you know, you only get energy from a few sources. the food you eat, the air you breathe, and then there's some energy you get from your ancestors that you have that you can burn out, which relates to your kidney energy, which is why, you know, when you burn the candle at both ends, or your Wall Street guys, when they go all day long and they work and they work and they work, eventually that's going to catch up to them.
Right.
Yeah. There's actually
it did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that burns out your kidney energy. And you'll see that with early graying. You'll see that with sore back and knees. You'll see that because the kidney's involved with water. So what happens when you get older? You shrink. Now, you just had a great phenomenon because you've been healthy. You actually grew. You should be a case study. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. So you restored some of that kidney energy. So lifestyle-wise, right, when someone's working 12, 14 hours a week, what would be the balance of that? How would you counteract that? What would you do? Rest. Yeah. Simple, right?
No time left to rest in the day.
Principle. Yeah. The simplest stuff is the best stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the simplest stuff, and that's what helps your kidneys out. The Chinese herb is zhumu, which is the wise mother. The wise mother knows to get the rest. Yeah.
Tim, how permanent are the results from acupuncture? We all love our chiropractors, but you seem to have to go back every week or every other week. You mentioned electricity with acupuncture. Is the result permanent?
Yeah, the studies have shown, unlike other modalities out there, that there is a buildup and that it stays with you. This is why some insurance companies right now are starting to cover lumbago, which is chronic low back pain, because people will come for a series of 10, 15, 20 treatments, excuse me, and then they'll study those people 2 years later after they haven't had acupuncture, and they're still doing better than the control group, which is phenomenal. So there is a buildup of that. And you know, again, that misconception that it's a miracle cure is the hardest thing to figure out. Because again, I'm a physical therapist and I love spines. Once I came out of school, I wanted the worst spines there were. And no one else did because it's a lot of work, right? Yeah. Which is probably why my kidney energy's kind of depleted a little bit. But what that did is it taught me a lot. You know, it really taught me a lot. And the spines, when you get your rest, you actually fill up with water. So as your spines get worse and worse as the day is because you're depleting your water and you're getting more bone on bone. This is why you shrink, because your kidney energy goes down. And you can't counteract that. It's the same thing with cartilage in your knees. I don't know how many people have tried to grow cartilage off a mouse and in a petri dish and stuck it in your knee. It's the fountain of youth. You can't play with Mother Nature.
Right.
You know, you really can't restore that ability of your body to hold water. Never mind, like, I'm going to keep drinking water, because you're just going to pee it out.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's your ability to hold water. It's no, you know, surprise that Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth.
Right.
So how do you make your body hold water?
Well, with chronic spines, I always recommend at least getting on the floor once a day with your legs up. And they've actually shown in studies that you actually will rehydrate. It's like a sponge. You know, and particularly with knees, I've had to really get into knees because I've had a lot of athletes just wear their knees out because the training. You go these deep squats, these linemen. You want to see some. Put a bunch of football linemen in from the '70s, and they're all they're. I don't think you'll find a knee in there that's real. You know, because they did these deep squats and stuff. And that's another principle of yin and yang, which is structure and function. So if you're doing a lot of functional knee bends, guess what? The structure is going to get beat up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you look at all these relationships all the time.
So the age-old question, how much is the right amount of water to drink?
Oh, she's very individual. Yep, very individual. I say that about pillows and mattresses. It's all individual. You know, should I get a Tempur-Pedic? Should I not get a Tempur-Pedic? It all depends on the person.
Well, what are the signs that I'm drinking enough water or not enough water?
Well, your urination. I volunteered at the Olympic Training Center, and at every urinal, they had a picture of what your pee should look like. It should not be yellow.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it should be fairly clear. Yeah, it should be fairly clear.
White either, right?
A little tinge of straw in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing we treat too, with these Lynn syndrome, which is there's blood in the urine, there's cloudy urine, there's all these type of urinary bladder infections we get. And that's a fun point that we remembered. It was just above your pubic symphysis, and it's called REN 3. And how you remembered it, it's at the urinary bladder, where the urinary bladder is, those moo points I was talking about. But you would say poke and pee REN 3. So sometimes, particularly in the elderly,
Do you have a bumper sticker for that?
yeah. That would be a good bumper sticker.
You brought some things with you, something you want to show our viewers, or what?
Yeah, I wanted to give some demonstration of some of the herbs out there.
Okay.
This is called Ban Sha, which is a type of herb that clears phlegm that we talked about. Phlegm and dampness are a culprit in a lot of the strange diseases.
You just eat it like that, or
No, you actually, for the raw stuff, you double decoct it. You boil it and then you boil it again.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and this is the real stuff. This is I sometimes like patients to do the raw stuff because then they really feel it. Again, for a cold, they have all these products out there like cough syrups and stuff that they've proven don't really work. But this stuff is the real McCoy because you feel it right away. And your cold, your cold's going to run its course. But instead of being 7 days and maybe possibly getting into pneumonia, or if you have a history of going right into your bronchioles, you get on something to get there before it happens.
Right.
Right? You prevent it.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Right.
I love to drink a lot of mint tea, so this I just pulled off outside my door today and make a tea out of it. Mint, we talked a little bit about the liver. The color of the liver is green. So this
Really?
is very good for your liver.
Huh.
Liver's in charge of its springtime energy. So, Chinese medicine is a natural medicine, right? What does that mean? It's based on nature.
Right.
So every system that the Chinese observed in nature, they correlated to the human body. They didn't say the humans are way above all this stuff.
Right.
They said we have the winter time of our life. We have the spring of our life.
Right.
There's a certain time when spring comes on where everything's busting forth. It's very green, and there's a lot of aggressive energy. It's your type A Wall Street guy. So green is very good at stress because it's green, and then the mint is very light too, so it's actually good for a cold, and it soothes the throat. Yep.
Good. All right. Mint we can all buy in the stores and make our teas. And
Yep, and
I like
there's
to put it in water with lemon and drink it in the
Yep, and
all during the day.
a lot of weight loss stuff with mint tea now, 3 cups a day. Right now we're in the cold and flu season. This is Kang Etze, which is for sinus congestion. Actually, I'll leave you some of this. You can make a tea for yourself. And she just goes, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a fun one too. This is Pang Dahai. This is for, it soothes the throat again. But if you put this in steeping water, it gets like 5 times the size. We talked about water. So it's really good for soothing the throat, but it also tonifies your lung qi. And your lung qi has a lot to do with your voice.
Oh.
So as you talk a lot, like professors or people that do shows like you, and your voice gets tired, this restores that. So you sip this as you're lecturing or as you're talking.
Good. Yeah.
This is Wu Weizi, which is very sour.
I don't think anybody can see it, but
No. So the taste of the herb tells you what it does. So sour astringes, sweet tonifies, salty breaks down, bitter drains damp. So the taste always means something. And also, they have a channel that they go through. We talked about the organs. So this one will go through the kidney to strengthen the kidney. Because it's sour, it's very good at preventing a lot of leakage from your kidneys. So it treats things like impotence and things like that, libido issues. And again, if you're draining too much with a bad cold, sometimes you might have to add a little bit of this so you don't drain too much. Always about that balance again.
yeah. Okay.
I have to ask about elite athletes. How is it working with them, and how are their attitudes towards this? And are professional sports teams encompassing acupuncture more than ever? And I've got to ask, who's the most famous athlete you've ever worked with?
Oh, geez. Those are a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know. You want me to write them down here? Dan?
Well, athletes are great to work with. They're at their physical peak, which means they're usually very healthy, and they're machines. They get better quick. So on that aspect, it's fantastic. And you're at a high level thing. You're at people that are at their peak performance. That just makes you better at what you do too. I was in hockey, and hockey guys are very blue collar. They really are appreciative and thankful, and they know the difference too when you're working hard. Most famous athlete I worked with would be Ray Bourque. Ray Bourque was the captain of the Bruins when I was there, and
the nemesis of the New York Rangers. I remember. Yes.
Yeah, he finally got his cup with the Colorado, and Boston was so gracious in that they had a parade for him, even though he didn't win it in Boston. Which is really cool. And he's a local guy, and he's got a restaurant still in the North End, so he's a great guy. And Cam Neely, of course, is the president now.
Right.
Yep. And he was one of my guys. He always had we always worked on some of his physical issues, and we had to retire him, which was very sad. It came to a moment where you see, again, we talked about the football guys. Well, the hockey guys, the same thing. So they'd be walking to the plane one day, and Derek Sanderson, who was a commentator at the time for Channel 38, he was great, him and Fred, he was walking with that big, what's called a Trendelenburg, when you walk and you go off to your side, which is usually indicative of a hip problem. And I saw Cam doing the same thing, and it just came to me that no one's going to tell him
Right.
unless I tell him. You know, so that was hard. So he was another good one. The volleyball girls I did one summer when I worked through St. John's Hospital, and we also did the World Cup then, which was cool because I was at the Rose Bowl during that decisive victory over China, U.S. versus China in '99, I believe it was, which was really neat.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, the girls were great. You know, I felt like a leprechaun because they're like 6'5" and really in great shape, and I would be massaging their legs or whatever, and they'd have sand there and like, oh, you must think this is so gross. And they had no idea. I just came from hockey, which is like really gross, you know? The guys in their jock straps and sweaty after practice. And you're like, no, this is fine. Or, you know, a nice, attractive woman in great shape working on her leg. I'm fine with this. This
Yeah, I
is
bet
not
you
a
are.
problem. Yeah.
Okay, not to change the subject, but to change the subject, do you treat Lyme disease?
Yes, I have some patients with Lyme disease.
And
yeah.
acupuncture, with acupuncture or
Yeah.
and herbs and
Yeah.
the whole thing?
Very good with symptom management. It's one of those things that creates a lot of phlegm.
Uh-huh.
You know, you can have hair loss, which is, you know, you see a lot of them in the sick houses, you know, the mold houses. It's very
Oh,
similar
yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
But Lyme disease is tricky because it can go in so many different places, and it can rear its ugly head and then go back. So there's a lot of different treatment principles you use through Chinese medicine. There's something called the 8 principles that you identify how to go about treating it, on what level of that healing continuum you're at. I'm just thinking of my patient I had 2 days ago. She came in, this was her second visit. She's actually a massage therapist too, and she was having a really hard time with a lot of pain everywhere. All her joints, very muzzy thinking, tough with memory recall, putting on weight, miserable. You know, really miserable. Again, that spirit can't feel good when the physical body's
Yeah.
kind of off, so your heart goes out to them. And she did really good. After one treatment, she came back in, and a lot of her pain went away, and her thinking got better, but she still has it. It's a process. That's the biggest
Can
thing.
you cure that with the
Cure is a
acupuncture
word that
and
I
herbs?
never use.
Never use that, huh?
Never use the word cure. You know, that spirochete, that little guy is going to be in there. It's how you manage it, just like
Okay.
everything else. You know, just like all your stuff, like ALS, like cancer, it's how you walk that walk and how you manage it and your perception to it.
Yeah.
How you reason through that perception of reality.
We got about 5 minutes left. You said something about you were going to show the audience what pulse and tongue is.
Oh, yeah. Would you like me to read your pulse?
All right.
Okay.
I'll volunteer.
All right, got one
Okay.
too far away, so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one really fast.
Didn't it?
Yeah. Maybe you
It
didn't
always
think
does.
so.
No, it always goes fast.
Yeah. All right. So here we go here. So again, on the left
Here we
side,
go.
yep, we have your heart. So right off the bat, I'm assessing someone's sleep.
You're assessing my sleep?
Yep. So
Okay.
if this is like really weak, I might be like, oh, you have trouble getting to sleep. Or if it's really kind of rapid and edgy, usually more of a menopausal woman, they toss and turn a lot. Or another way you look at sleep too is through the spleen. If the spleen's going too much, that's the racing thought thing. So
Do
a lot
I
of
want to know
times,
this? Do I want to know?
Not on the air, you don't know.
Do I want
Yeah.
the world to know?
so kidneys, we talked about genetics a little bit. Very good kidney strength on you. So I would ask you about your parents. They, you know, what their lifespan was and what you can look forward to. Other ways you can look at that too is the ear. People that have big ears usually have a long life.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
why
think
Buddha
it-
has those earlobes that go down to the floor usually.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. So kidney health is very good. Spleen. So yeah, you're a thinker. You're up in your head a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that comes off on the top. Sometimes it's a vibration. So the waveform, there's maybe 50 different qualities of the pulse you look for.
Huh, how about that?
There's your lung. So I would ask you about your relationship with your father, your spirituality. You know what set you off there.
Spirituality's good. Father, no.
Yep, and that's the balance. So when there's loss of father or absent father, whatever there
Absent
was
father.
there, yep, whatever there was there, that means someone usually seeks out father somewhere else, which is what set you on your path, which is why, again, it was a blessing, whatever it was.
Wow, you could tell all that.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Yeah, and there's a touch of the liver blood deficiency. You know, so I'm very thankful that I've just had 2 of my 3 female patients actually were able to conceive, which is neat.
Oh.
So a lot of that is tracking the blood.
Uh-huh.
because the blood is what bathes the uterus and gets things kind of going and stuff like that.
So if someone were to get that, how would you say they should treat their liver or their blood to make it better or something?
For fertility stuff, or
Oh, you're talking for, well, I don't need to get fertile. I don't need to get fertile now.
well, it's kind of funny because sometimes I'll treat menopausal women and they'll get their periods back and they hate me.
Oh.
Yeah,
They're like,
they
I don't
do,
want
yeah.
that back. What are you doing to me? But
Uh-huh.
hey, you're getting younger. You can still,
Yeah.
you know, because that's kind of a marker of health too. Like how you span someone's life is how long are they staying like they can reproduce for. So one way you can track a species and its potential longevity.
They
which-
still hate you even though you explain that to
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah, there's no
But
help.
you can diagnose a problem with an organ, right?
Yes, and that's
Okay.
what it's about. It's always about being specific to the person. So sleep, for example, is never treated one way. You know, it's never given Ambien. It's
Yeah.
always being like, what pattern diagnosis do you have? And then I can choose from maybe 5 or 6 different formulas based on that. And sometimes they're not even insomnia formulas. Sometimes it might be just tonifying the blood that we talked about with the Suwu tongue.
Right.
Yeah.
We got about 1 minute left. Is there any last words you'd like to leave our viewers with?
No, I would just like to really be thankful to you for having me on, and I really enjoyed it. And it was nice meeting you too.
Very nice
It was
presentation,
great.
Tim. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you
And
very much.
what I
you
got
guys.
out of it is moving back to nature. With all these cell phones and things in our ear, some of the healing processes are moving back to nature. And please go see an acupuncturist or a complementary medicine person, not as the last resort. Let's start thinking of them a little earlier in the process.
Right,
for
preventative.
prevention.
Yes.
Preventative
love it.
medicine, yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Preventative medicine, exactly. And we have 1 minute left. How do you observe spirits? Is that what you mean, the person's spirit? Can you observe?
Spirit is one of the 3 treasures called Shen. Shen is like how it's housed in the heart, so it has a lot to do with behavior. But a quick way is like someone has through their eyes. Spirit comes through the eyes.
Oh,
So someone who's really bright in the eyes, again, yin and yang, right? That could be too much spirit.
Ah.
Or someone who's really dull in the eyes, that's not enough spirit. So that's one way to look at that.
so medium eyes.
Yeah,
medium
you always
light.
want to balance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything's got to be medium.
yeah.
That's right. So that's how you tell, just by looking at them. And by the tongue, you tell by just looking at the tongue.
The tongue has got all these correspondence on it. So the front is heart and lung, the middle is the
Oh,
stomach,
that's how you-
sides, liver, gallbladder, back is the kidneys. Yep, so it tells
Very
a lot.
good.
Particularly with antibiotics, you'll have a thick fur on your tongue.
Oh,
so the
yeah,
coating
yeah.
means something too.
Yeah, that's true. They get that. What do they call that? I forget what they call that.
Thrush or...
Thrush.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time. So I want to thank you very much for being
Thank
here.
you, Rosemary.
Very
Thank
much.
you, Tim. Very
Thank you,
nice.
Dave. Thank
Very
you.
much enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
And we're going to give you the audience your contact information. To reach Tim Trahant, the phone number is 860-552-8530, and his address is 180 West Main Street in Clinton, and his website is www.stonetemplesanctuary.com. If you miss any of this, you'll find it on Facebook on the page, our Healing Outside the Box page. And to learn more information about this show or any of our past shows, please contact us at healingoutsidethebox@yahoo.com, or to reach me, Rosemary Lachance. My number is 203-627-7966. My website is www.rosemarylachance.com. And David?
Very nice show. Thank you for having me again. David Beatty at davidhbeatty@gmail.com. And my number is 203-394-2351. And I do want to emphasize that science is now proving that acupuncture is in fact effective. So give it a shot.
Thank you.
All right. Tonight's quote is this: I will make love my greatest weapon, and no one on whom I call can defend against its force. My love will melt all hearts, like unto the sun, whose rays soften the coldest day. And that's by Og Mandino.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Well done.
Thank you for joining us. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Good night. See you next time.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Feel your thirst beside the river. Wash the journey from your hands. Feel the comfort flow inside you. Come this far, you understand.